I'm Dalton, 64 years old, and when my attorney showed me that folder with my daughter's signature authorizing the transfer of my marine surveying business to her boyfriend without my knowledge, I realized everything I thought I knew about my family was wrong. The business I'd spent 37 years building, appraising luxury yachts and boats for insurance companies across the Pacific Northwest, was being stolen from right under my nose by the people I trusted most. I was sitting in my attorney's office here in Tacoma, Washington that Tuesday morning, thinking I was just updating some routine business documents. My daughter Sage had been helping me with the paperwork for months, always so eager to assist her old man with the complicated legal stuff. She'd drive down from Seattle every weekend, spread documents across my kitchen table, and walk me through what needed signatures. I was proud of how involved she'd become in understanding the business operations. My marine surveying company had been my life's work. Starting with nothing but a Coast Guard certification and a beat-up truck, I'd built relationships with yacht owners, insurance companies, and boat dealers throughout Washington, Oregon, and Northern California. When wealthy clients needed their million-dollar yachts inspected and appraised, they called me. My reputation for thorough, honest assessments had made me the go-to guy for high-end marine insurance work. The business was pulling in close to $200,000 a year, with a client database worth easily another $300,000. Sage had always been my pride and joy. After her mother and I divorced when she was 12, I'd made sure she never wanted for anything. Private school tuition, college at University of Washington, her apartment deposit, car payments, insurance, you name it. When she graduated and moved to Seattle, I kept helping because that's what fathers do. Her rent, groceries, student loan payments, even funding for the photography business she was trying to start. Every month, like clockwork, $1,500 transferred into her account. She'd started dating this guy Crew about 8 months ago. He was younger, maybe 26 to her 31, and had this smooth way of talking that rubbed me wrong from day one. Always showing up in expensive clothes, driving a BMW he claimed to lease, talking about investment opportunities, and expanding the business. When Sage brought him around, he'd shake my hand too firmly and call me sir in this rehearsed way that felt fake. But Sage seemed happy, and after her last boyfriend turned out to be a deadbeat, I figured maybe this guy had ambition. She'd started bringing Crew to our weekend paperwork sessions, said he was interested in learning about the business world. He'd sit there asking questions about client contracts, revenue streams, asset valuations. I thought he was just trying to impress me, show he cared about what mattered to my daughter. The first sign something wasn't right came 3 weeks ago when my business insurance company called about policy changes I'd never authorized. When I called Sage to ask if she remembered signing anything about insurance modifications, she got defensive, said there were so many documents she couldn't remember every detail. That nagging feeling in my gut told me to pay closer attention, but I pushed it down because questioning your own daughter feels wrong. Now my attorney, Henderson, was spreading documents across his desk with the careful precision of a man delivering bad news. Dalton, I need you to look at these transfer agreements very carefully. According to these papers, you've signed over majority ownership of your business to one Crew Mitchell, with Sage Patterson listed as secondary beneficiary. I stared at him like he'd started speaking Chinese. What the hell are you talking about? I never signed anything like that. Henderson's expression was grim as he pointed to signatures that looked exactly like mine, dated over the past 6 months. These were notarized, filed with the county, and legally binding. Your business, your client database, your equipment, even your commercial insurance policies now list Crew Mitchell as primary owner. The blood drained from my face as Henderson continued explaining what I was looking at. Every single document had been carefully orchestrated to transfer my life's work to a kid I barely knew, and my own daughter had been the one collecting my signatures. The transfer papers, business registration changes, banking authorizations, insurance beneficiary modifications, all of it had been mixed in with what I thought were routine business updates. Look at this one, Dalton, Henderson said, sliding another folder toward me. This is a loan agreement where your business assets were used as collateral for a $200,000 business loan. The money went directly into an account controlled by Crew Mitchell. My hands started shaking as I read my own signature authorizing debt I'd never heard of. And here's the real kicker. If this loan defaults, which it's scheduled to do next month, Crew gets to claim your entire business operation to cover the debt. I felt like I was drowning. 37 years of building relationships, establishing reputation, creating something valuable from nothing, and it was all being stolen through paperwork I'd signed while trusting my own daughter. The marine surveying business wasn't just my income. It was my identity, my expertise, my connection to the boating community I'd served for decades. Henderson pulled out his phone and showed me a screenshot from the Washington State Business Registry. This was updated 2 weeks ago. Mitchell Marine Surveying Services, owned by Crew Mitchell, licensed for yacht appraisal and marine insurance consulting. Same services, same target market, using your client database and reputation. The company I'd built was being cloned, and I was being erased from my own creation. How is this possible? I asked, though the sick feeling in my stomach already knew the answer. Every weekend for months, Sage had been bringing me papers to sign. Insurance updates, tax documents, business registrations, banking forms. I trusted her completely, signed whatever she put in front of me because she was my daughter, and she'd never given me reason to doubt her intentions. Your daughter has legal power of attorney for business matters, Henderson explained. You signed that authorization 4 months ago, remember? She told you it was so she could help with routine paperwork when you were traveling for surveys. I did remember that conversation. Sage had made it sound so reasonable, so helpful. Her old man was getting older, sometimes forgot to file documents on time. Wouldn't it be easier if she could handle the administrative details? The pattern was becoming clear now, and it made me physically sick. Every time Crew had asked questions about my business operations, he'd been conducting reconnaissance. When he'd expressed interest in learning about the industry, he'd been cataloging my methods, my client relationships, my pricing strategies. When Sage had insisted on digitizing all my client files for backup purposes, she'd been creating a database they could steal. Henderson continued reading from the documents. There's also a non-compete clause buried in here that prevents you from operating a marine surveying business within 200 miles of Tacoma for 5 years. If you violate it, you owe them $500,000 in damages. They hadn't just stolen my business, they'd tried to make it impossible for me to rebuild. But I never agreed to any of this, I protested. These signatures were obtained through fraud. Sage never explained what these documents really were. That's what we'll argue in court, Henderson said. But proving fraud against your own daughter who had legal power of attorney is going to be complicated and expensive. They were very careful about making everything look legitimate. He paused, studying my face. Dalton, there's something else. The loan that's about to default, the collateral isn't just your business assets. They somehow got your house added to the agreement. My house, the 4-bedroom place in North Tacoma where I'd raised Sage after the divorce. Where every room held memories of her childhood, where she still had her own key and came and went as she pleased. How the hell did they get my house involved in this? Henderson showed me another document with my signature. Home equity loan secured against your property, co-signed by someone with power of attorney. The money went to capitalize the new business, and if the business loan defaults, your house becomes collateral for recovery. I sat there staring at documents that proved my own daughter had been systematically destroying my life for months, and the worst part was how perfectly they'd played me. Every signature had been obtained through lies. Every conversation had been manipulation. Every weekend visit had been another step in their plan to steal everything I'd worked for. There's more, Dalton, Henderson said quietly, and I wasn't sure I could handle hearing it. He pulled out a manila folder that looked thicker than all the others combined. I had my investigator look into this Crew Mitchell character after you first called about the insurance issues. His real name is Cruz Rodriguez, and he's done this before. The investigator's report painted a picture that made my blood run cold. Cruz had targeted 3 other older men in Oregon and Northern California over the past 5 years. Always the same pattern. Find a successful small business owner with a daughter or son in their 20s, seduce the child, gain access to the family, then systematically steal the business through fraudulent paperwork and power of attorney manipulation. In Portland, he got control of a man's custom boat building operation, Henderson continued. In Sacramento, it was a marine repair facility. In San Francisco, a yacht charter business. Same methods every time. Romance the adult child, gain the father's trust, use legal documents to transfer ownership, then disappear with everything. Each victim had lost their life's work, and none had been able to recover because the theft had been accomplished through seemingly legitimate legal channels. I felt like I was going to vomit. My daughter wasn't just being used, she was an active participant in a criminal enterprise that had been perfected through practice. What happened to the other families? I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to know. The Portland man lost his house and business, had to move in with relatives. The Sacramento victim tried to fight it in court, spent $50,000 in legal fees, got nothing back. The San Francisco guy. Henderson paused. He had a heart attack 6 months after losing everything. Stress-related, according to his doctor. The investigator had also uncovered financial records showing that Sage and Cruz had been planning this for almost a year. Bank records showed regular deposits into an account they shared, money that could only have come from selling information about my business operations, my client lists, my survey methods to competitors. They'd been shopping my life's work to other marine surveyors, selling my trade secrets while pretending to help me with paperwork. Here's what really makes me angry, Henderson said, pulling out printed emails his investigator had obtained through legal discovery. These are communications between your daughter and Cruz from 6 months ago, before they started the document fraud. He handed me printouts that I read with growing horror. The emails showed Sage and Cruz discussing me like I was a mark to be conned. Dad's getting more trusting as he gets older, one message read. He barely reads anything before signing now. Another email detailed how they could accelerate the timeline by getting me to sign multiple documents during each weekend visit. He won't question anything if I'm the one asking, Sage had written. But the email that destroyed me completely was one where Sage discussed what would happen after they'd stolen my business. Dad will probably try to fight it, but by then we'll be in Mexico with the money, she'd written. He's 64, he can figure out his own retirement. My own daughter was planning to flee the country after destroying my life, leaving me with nothing but debt and legal problems. The investigator had traced their activities even further. They'd already established banking accounts in Mexico, purchased property in Cancun under false names, and arranged for Cruz's sister to manage their new marine surveying operation in Mexico using my client database and survey methods. This wasn't just theft. It was a complete life reconstruction using my stolen identity and business reputation. Henderson showed me photographs the investigator had taken of Sage and Cruz house hunting in expensive neighborhoods outside Seattle. They were planning to buy $1 million home with money stolen from your business, then disappear to Mexico before the fraudulent loans defaulted and you lost your house. The timeline was clear. Within 60 days, I would have been homeless and bankrupt while they lived off my life's work in another country. The really sick part, Henderson added, is that your daughter has been documenting the entire process. She kept detailed records of every signature she obtained, every document she had you sign, like she was proud of how well the con was working. Looking at those records felt like watching a movie of my own destruction, filmed by my own daughter. Henderson spread out printed screenshots from Sage's phone showing her texting Cruz updates after each weekend visit. Got him to sign the equipment transfer papers today, one message read. He didn't even ask what they were for. Another showed a photo she'd taken of me at my kitchen table, signing documents, with the caption, "Dad making us rich and doesn't even know it." The investigator had recovered deleted text messages between Sage and Cruz, discussing how to manipulate me more effectively. Dad gets suspicious if I seem too eager, one message explained. Better to act reluctant about business stuff, like I'm doing him a favor by helping. They'd choreographed every interaction, planned every conversation, turned my paternal love into a weapon against me. Henderson pulled out bank statements showing the money trail. Every time you thought you were helping Sage with her photography business or rent payments, that money was actually going into accounts controlled by Cruz. The $1,500 you've been sending her each month, it's been funding their operation against you. My own generosity had been financing the theft of my life's work. Here's where it gets worse, Henderson said, though I couldn't imagine how. They've been using your business credit and reputation to secure additional loans and lines of credit. Your company currently owes over $400,000 to various lenders, all secured against your assets. The debt load would have bankrupted me even if I'd kept control of the business. The investigator had also discovered that Cruz had been surveying boats using my credentials and reputation, but providing deliberately flawed reports designed to cause insurance claims. He's been sabotaging your professional reputation while stealing your clients, Henderson explained. When boats he surveyed start having problems, your name is on the reports. The insurance companies think you've lost your edge. Documentation showed they'd been planning to frame me for insurance fraud as the final step in their scheme. If your reputation gets destroyed for providing bad surveys, it eliminates you as competition when they steal your business, Henderson said. They wanted to make sure you couldn't rebuild even if you discovered the theft. I stared at evidence that my daughter had spent months methodically destroying every aspect of my life. My business, my reputation, my financial security, my relationships with clients I'd served faithfully for decades. The kid I'd raised, supported through college, helped establish her adult life, had been documenting my destruction like it was a science experiment. "What about the house?" I asked, dreading the answer. Henderson showed me the foreclosure timeline. "The home equity loan they obtained using your signature is scheduled to default in 3 weeks. The lender can begin foreclosure proceedings immediately after that. Within a month, I'd be homeless unless I could somehow come up with $200,000 I didn't have." The beautiful part of their plan, Henderson continued with bitter admiration, is that even if you discovered everything today, you'd still lose almost everything. The fraudulent loans are real debt. The business transfers are legally binding until proven fraudulent in court, and that takes time and money you don't have. He leaned back in his chair, studying my face. "Dalton, I have to ask, when's the last time you spoke directly with any of your major clients? Not through Sage or Cruz, but personally." I thought about it and realized with growing horror that I hadn't directly communicated with most of my best clients in over 2 months. Sage said she was handling client communications to help reduce my workload. She said the clients preferred dealing with someone more available for scheduling. "I suspected as much," Henderson said grimly. "My investigator contacted 3 of your biggest clients yesterday. They all said they'd received emails from your business address saying you were retiring and recommending Mitchell Marine Surveying as your replacement. The emails included your digital signature and referenced conversations they never had with you. They'd been stealing my clients while I thought they were helping me manage communications. Every client relationship I'd spent decades building was being transferred to their new company using my own email account and digital signature." Henderson closed the folders and looked at me directly. "Dalton, I need to know. Are you ready to fight this, or are you going to let them destroy you?" Looking at those records felt like watching a movie of my own destruction, filmed by my own daughter. Henderson spread out printed screenshots from Sage's phone showing her texting Cruz updates after each weekend visit. "Got him to sign the equipment transfer papers today," one message read. "He didn't even ask what they were for." Another showed a photo she'd taken of me at my kitchen table signing documents, with the caption, "Dad making us rich and doesn't even know it." The investigator had recovered deleted text messages between Sage and Cruz, discussing how to manipulate me more effectively. "Dad gets suspicious if I seem too eager," one message explained. "Better to act reluctant about business stuff, like I'm doing him a favor by helping." They'd choreographed every interaction, planned every conversation, turned my paternal love into a weapon against me. Henderson pulled out bank statements showing the money trail. "Every time you thought you were helping Sage with her photography business or rent payments, that money was actually going into accounts controlled by Cruz. The $1,500 you've been sending her each month? It's been funding their operation against you. My own generosity had been financing the theft of my life's work." "Here's where it gets worse," Henderson said, though I couldn't imagine how. "They've been using your business credit and reputation to secure additional loans and lines of credit. Your company currently owes over $400,000 to various lenders, all secured against your assets. The debt load would have bankrupted me even if I'd kept control of the business." The investigator had also discovered that Cruz had been surveying boats using my credentials and reputation, but providing deliberately flawed reports designed to cause insurance claims. "He's been sabotaging your professional reputation while stealing your clients," Henderson explained. "When boats he surveyed start having problems, your name is on the reports. The insurance companies think you've lost your edge. Documentation showed they'd been planning to frame me for insurance fraud as the final step in their scheme. If your reputation gets destroyed for providing bad surveys, it eliminates you as competition when they steal your business," Henderson said. "They wanted to make sure you couldn't rebuild even if you discovered the theft." I stared at evidence that my daughter had spent months methodically destroying every aspect of my life. My business, my reputation, my financial security, my relationships with clients I'd served faithfully for decades. The kid I'd raised, supported through college, helped establish her adult life, had been documenting my destruction like it was a science experiment. "What about the house?" I asked, dreading the answer. Henderson showed me the foreclosure timeline. The home equity loan they obtained using your signature is scheduled to default in 3 weeks. The lender can begin foreclosure proceedings immediately after that. Within a month, I'd be homeless unless I could somehow come up with $200,000 I didn't have. The beautiful part of their plan, Henderson continued with bitter admiration, is that even if you discovered everything today, you'd still lose almost everything. The fraudulent loans are real debt. The business transfers are legally binding until proven fraudulent in court, and that takes time and money you don't have. He leaned back in his chair, studying my face. Dalton, I have to ask, when's the last time you spoke directly with any of your major clients? Not through Sage or Cruz, but personally. I thought about it and realized with growing horror that I hadn't directly communicated with most of my best clients in over 2 months. Sage said she was handling client communications to help reduce my workload. She said the clients preferred dealing with someone more available for scheduling. I suspected as much, Henderson said grimly. My investigator contacted 3 of your biggest clients yesterday. They all said they'd received emails from your business address saying you were retiring and recommending Mitchell Marine Surveying as your replacement. The emails included your digital signature and referenced conversations they never had with you. They'd been stealing my clients while I thought they were helping me manage communications. Every client relationship I'd spent decades building was being transferred to their new company using my own email account and digital signature. Henderson closed the folders and looked at me directly. Dalton, I need to know, are you ready to fight this, or are you going to let them destroy you? The fury that had been building inside me finally crystallized into cold, calculated determination. These people had underestimated who they were dealing with, and that was going to be their biggest mistake. Henderson, I didn't spend 37 years building a reputation in this industry to let some con artist and my traitorous daughter steal it from me. What do we do? Henderson smiled for the first time since I'd walked into his office. First, we freeze everything they can't touch yet. Your personal banking accounts, your retirement funds, anything not directly tied to the business. Then we start building a case that'll put them both in federal prison for wire fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy. Within 2 hours, we'd moved my personal savings to a new bank account they couldn't access, contacted the FBI's Financial Crimes Division to report the interstate fraud scheme, and filed emergency injunctions to prevent further asset transfers. Henderson had connections throughout the Pacific Northwest legal community, and he was activating all of them. The advantage we have, Henderson explained as he made calls, is that Cruz got greedy. He's been running this same con for years, and that creates a pattern federal prosecutors love. Multiple victims across state lines, documented methods, financial trails that prove intent. My phone buzzed with a text from Sage. Dad, can we meet for coffee tomorrow? Need to talk to you about something important. The casual tone made my skin crawl, knowing what I now knew about her involvement. I showed Henderson the message. Perfect timing, he said. Text her back that you'd love to meet. Don't let on that you know anything. We need to document her trying to manipulate you further, and I want my investigator recording the conversation. I typed back. Of course, sweetheart. How about our usual place on 6th Avenue at 2 p.m.? The words felt like poison in my mouth, but Henderson was right. We needed evidence of her continuing the fraud. Henderson's investigator, a former Seattle police detective named Williams, had been monitoring Cruz's activities for the past week. He's been liquidating assets fast, Williams reported. Sold his BMW yesterday, closed 2 bank accounts, booked flights to Mexico for next week. They were definitely planning to run once the loans defaulted, and I lost everything. What about my client relationships? I asked. Can we save any of them? Williams pulled out a folder. I've been making discreet inquiries. Most of your longtime clients were suspicious about the retirement emails because they didn't sound like you. 3 major insurance companies want to meet with you directly before switching to Mitchell Marine Surveying. They're not comfortable with the transition. That gave me hope. My reputation had been built on personal relationships and consistent quality work. If I could prove to my clients that the retirement emails were fraudulent, I might salvage some of the business relationships even if I couldn't immediately recover the company assets. Henderson outlined our strategy. We're going to let them think everything's proceeding normally while we gather evidence. The FBI needs time to build a federal case, and we need to document every fraudulent transaction. In the meantime, we're going to start your new marine surveying company. The idea of starting over at 64 was terrifying, but Henderson was right. Your certification, your expertise, your reputation, those can't be stolen through paperwork. We'll establish Patterson Marine Consulting, get you proper insurance, and start rebuilding your client base with people who value your 37 years of experience. Williams had more good news. I contacted the other victims of Cruz's previous cons. They're all willing to testify about his methods, and 2 of them still have evidence they never turned over to local police. The Portland victim kept emails and financial records that'll help prove the pattern. Henderson was already drafting legal documents. We're filing a civil RICO lawsuit against both of them. If we can prove this was an ongoing criminal enterprise, we can recover treble damages plus attorney fees. Instead of just getting your assets back, you could end up owning everything they've acquired through their fraud scheme. The thought of not just stopping them but actually profiting from their attempt to destroy me felt like justice. What about my house? We're filing an emergency motion to invalidate the home equity loan based on fraudulent power of attorney, Henderson said. It'll buy us time to build the bigger case. Your house isn't going anywhere, Dalton. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe again. Tomorrow, I'd sit across from my daughter and pretend I still trusted her while recording evidence that would send her to federal prison. The next afternoon, I sat across from Sage at our usual coffee shop on 6th Avenue, wearing a wire and watching my daughter's face as she prepared to deliver what she thought would be the final blow to my life. Williams was positioned at a corner table with recording equipment, while Henderson waited in his office for updates. Every word she spoke was being documented for federal prosecutors. "Dad, I've got some difficult news," Sage began, her voice perfectly modulated to sound concerned and apologetic. "I've been reviewing your business finances with Crew, and we think you might need to consider some major changes." The practiced sincerity in her voice made me want to vomit, but I kept my expression neutral. "What kind of changes, sweetheart?" I asked, playing the role of the trusting father she'd been manipulating for months. Sage pulled out a folder of documents, more papers for me to sign, more steps in their plan to complete my destruction. "The business has some debt issues that are more serious than we initially thought. Crew thinks the best option might be for him to take over operations while you transition into retirement." She was actually trying to get me to voluntarily hand over what they hadn't already stolen. "Crew's been studying the industry," she continued, "and he has some innovative ideas about modernizing marine surveying services. The insurance companies are looking for younger, more tech-savvy operations." Every word was a lie designed to make me feel obsolete and grateful for their help. I pretended to study the papers she'd brought. "This seems like it gives Crew a lot of control over the business I built." "Dad, you're 64 years old," Sage said with fake concern. "Do you really want to keep dealing with the stress of running a business? You should be enjoying your retirement, maybe traveling, taking it easy." She was trying to convince me that being robbed was actually a favor they were doing for me. The recording device was capturing every word as she continued explaining how their theft was really in my best interest. Crew's already been handling most of the client communications, and the transition would be seamless. You'd still get a percentage of the profits as a consultant fee. A percentage of profits from my own stolen business. The audacity was breathtaking. My phone buzzed with a text from Henderson. "Federal agents are moving on Cruz right now. Keep her talking." "What about the house?" I asked, knowing she was about to explain how losing my home was also somehow beneficial for me. Sage's expression shifted slightly. This was the part she was least comfortable with. "There are some complicated financial issues tied to the business debt. The house might need to be refinanced to help stabilize the company's credit situation." She couldn't even bring herself to admit they were stealing my home, so she dressed it up in financial terminology. "Refinanced how?" I pressed. "Crew has connections with lenders who specialize in business to residential debt consolidation," she said, pulling out more documents. "It would be temporary, just until the business cash flow stabilizes." Every word was calculated to confuse me while getting my signature on papers that would complete their theft. I watched my daughter, the child I'd raised, supported, loved unconditionally, trying to convince me that losing everything I'd worked for was actually a smart financial decision. The psychological manipulation was sophisticated and cruel, designed to make me complicit in my own destruction. "This seems like a big decision," I said. "Maybe I should talk to my attorney first." For just a moment, Sage's mask slipped, and I saw something cold and calculating in her eyes. "Dad, attorneys just complicate simple business arrangements with unnecessary fees and delays. Crew's already done the legal research. These documents are standard industry transfers. My phone buzzed again. Henderson. Crew's in custody. FBI raiding their Seattle apartment now. Sage was still talking, explaining how signing over my life's work was really the responsible thing to do when her phone rang. She glanced at the screen and her face went white. I need to take this, she said, stepping away from the table. I could hear her end of the conversation from where I sat. What do you mean, arrested? Then, FBI? How is that possible? Finally, I can't talk right now. I'm with him. She came back to the table looking shaken but trying to maintain her composure. Dad, something's come up. We might need to postpone this conversation. Is everything okay, sweetheart? I asked with mock concern. Crew's having some issues with his business permits, she said, clearly scrambling for an explanation. Nothing serious, just bureaucratic complications. Even caught red-handed, she was still lying to my face. I stood up slowly, looking directly into her eyes. Sage, I know everything. The color drained from Sage's face as the full weight of my words hit her. For a moment, she looked like the little girl I'd raised, caught in a lie about breaking something valuable. Then her expression hardened into something I'd never seen before, cold, calculating, and completely without remorse. I don't know what you think you know, she said, but her voice was shaking. She glanced around the coffee shop, probably wondering if other people were watching us, if this was some kind of setup. It was. I know about Cruz Rodriguez, I said quietly. I know about the Portland boat builder, the Sacramento marine repair shop, the San Francisco yacht charter business. I know this is the 4th time you've helped him destroy a father's life. Her face went completely white as I listed the previous victims. Sage tried to stand up, but I wasn't finished. I know about the fake emails to my clients, the fraudulent loan documents, the house equity theft, the Mexico bank accounts, the property in Cancun. I know you've been documenting my destruction like it was a science experiment. Dad, you don't understand, she started, but I held up my hand. I understand that you've spent months systematically stealing everything I built while pretending to love me, I said. I understand that you were planning to flee to Mexico next week while I lost my house and my business. I understand that my own daughter has been financing her lifestyle by selling my life's work to the highest bidder. Sage looked toward the door, calculating whether she could run, but Williams was blocking the exit and federal agents were positioned outside. She was trapped, and she was starting to realize it. The FBI raided your apartment 20 minutes ago, I continued. They found all the evidence, the forged documents, the client lists, the banking information, the communications with Cruz's previous victims. Everything you thought you'd hidden so carefully. Her composure finally cracked completely. You have no idea what you've done, she hissed. And suddenly I was looking at a stranger. Do you think this was easy? Do you think I enjoyed pretending to care about your boring business and your pathetic stories about yacht inspections? The venom in her voice was shocking, but also liberating. This wasn't my daughter speaking. This was a criminal who'd been wearing my daughter's face for months. You made this so easy, Dad. So trusting, so eager to help your precious little girl. You signed whatever I put in front of you without even reading it. I trusted you because you're my daughter, I said, and for a moment she looked almost ashamed. Then the mask came back. I stopped being your daughter the day I realized how pathetic your life was, she said. 40 years in the same boring town, doing the same boring job, living in the same boring house. Cruz showed me there was a whole world out there, opportunities you were too scared to take. Williams approached our table, showing his badge. Sage Patterson, you're under arrest for wire fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy to commit grand theft. You have the right to remain silent. As the handcuffs clicked around her wrists, Sage looked at me with pure hatred. You think you've won? You have no idea how many clients we've already stolen, how much damage we've done to your precious reputation. Even if you get your business back, no one will trust you again. Actually, I said, standing up as Williams led her toward the door, I spoke with 3 major insurance companies this morning. They're dropping Mitchell Marine Surveying and returning to Patterson Marine Consulting. Turns out they never believed I'd retire without talking to them personally. Her face twisted with rage as she realized their careful plan had been built on a fundamental miscalculation. "You can't rebuild at 64. You're too old, too set in your ways." "Watch me," I said quietly. As they took her away, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Peace. The daughter I'd loved was gone, had probably never existed except in my imagination. But the man who'd built a marine surveying business from nothing was still here, and he was about to show two con artists what real determination looked like. Henderson appeared at my elbow. "How do you feel?" "Like I just took out the trash," I said, watching the police car disappear down 6th Avenue. "Now let's go destroy what's left of their operation and rebuild mine." 3 weeks later, I was sitting in the FBI field office in Seattle, watching as Agent Martinez spread out evidence that would send both Sage and Cruz to federal prison for years. The scope of their criminal enterprise was even larger than we'd initially discovered, and the federal case was airtight. "We recovered over $2 million in assets from their various accounts," Agent Martinez explained. "Property in Mexico, luxury vehicles, jewelry, cash accounts in 3 different banks, all of it purchased with money stolen from you and the previous victims. The investigation had uncovered a sophisticated operation that had been running for over 6 years." Henderson sat beside me, reviewing the civil lawsuit settlements. "The RICO case is paying off exactly as we hoped, Dalton. Since we can prove this was an ongoing criminal enterprise, you're entitled to treble damages plus attorney fees. You're not just getting your assets back, you're going to profit substantially from their attempt to destroy you." The Portland victim, a man named Robert who'd lost his custom boat building business 3 years earlier, had flown up to Seattle to testify. "I never thought I'd see justice for what they did to me," he told me over coffee. When Agent Martinez called and said they'd finally been caught, I cried. Grown man, 68 years old, and I cried. Robert's testimony had been crucial in establishing the pattern of fraud that made the federal case possible. "They used the exact same methods on me," he explained. "My son brought home this girl who seemed so interested in the family business. 6 months later, everything I'd built was gone, and they disappeared to California." The Sacramento victim, Maria, had lost her marine repair facility in a similar scheme 2 years earlier. "They convinced my daughter that I was too old to run a modern business," she testified via video conference. "Said they were helping me transition to retirement. I lost everything, my shop, my house, my relationship with my daughter. But the most satisfying moment came when Agent Martinez showed me the evidence they'd recovered from Cruz's apartment. He kept detailed records of every con, including photographs and documents from each victim," she explained. "He was planning to write a book about it. The family business, how to steal a life's work through trust." The arrogance was breathtaking. Cruz had been so proud of his criminal expertise that he'd documented everything, creating the perfect evidence trail for federal prosecutors. Photos of him and Sage celebrating after each successful theft, bank records showing how they'd divided the stolen money, even video recordings of him explaining his methods to other criminals. "Your daughter was more involved than we initially realized," Agent Martinez continued. "She wasn't just helping with one con, she'd been researching potential victims for months before they targeted you. She had files on 12 other marine industry professionals across the West Coast." Henderson showed me the civil settlement agreements. "Every asset they acquired through fraud is now yours. The Mexico property, the luxury vehicles, the cash accounts, everything. Plus, the 3 previous victims are getting their stolen assets returned through the federal restitution program. Patterson Marine Consulting was already operational and growing. My longtime clients had not only returned but were referring new business, impressed by how I'd handled the crisis. Your reputation in the industry has actually improved," Henderson observed. "People respect someone who fights back against fraud and wins." The rebuilding process had been faster than I'd expected. Within 2 weeks of Cruz's arrest, I had my client database restored, my equipment recovered, and my business operations fully functional. The insurance companies that had briefly switched to Mitchell Marine Surveying came back apologetically, admitting they'd been suspicious of the transition all along. The federal sentencing guidelines call for 8 to 12 years for Cruz, Agent Martinez explained. This was his 4th major fraud operation, and the pattern shows escalating sophistication and damage. He's going away for a long time. Sage's sentencing would be lighter since this was her first federal conviction, but she was still looking at 3 to 5 years in federal prison. "She's been trying to negotiate a plea deal," Henderson told me. claiming she was manipulated by Cruz and deserves leniency. "What do you think?" he asked. I thought about the venom in her voice when she'd called my life pathetic, the cold calculation in her eyes when she'd tried to get me to sign away my house, the months of systematic psychological manipulation designed to make me complicit in my own destruction. "I think she made her choice when she decided to help destroy her father's life for money," I said. "Let her serve her time and think about what family loyalty actually means." The house had been saved through the emergency injunction, and all the fraudulent loans had been invalidated. My credit score had actually improved once the fraudulent debt was removed from my records. More importantly, I'd learned to trust my instincts instead of ignoring red flags just because they came from family. "There's one more thing," Agent Martinez said with a smile. Cruz's book manuscript included detailed methods for his fraud schemes. The FBI is turning it into a training manual for financial crimes investigators. Your case is going to help protect other families from similar cons. 6 months after the arrests, I was standing on the deck of a $2 million yacht in Elliott Bay, conducting a survey for a new client who'd heard about my reputation for integrity. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was now busier and more successful than I'd been before Sage and Cruz tried to destroy me. Patterson Marine Consulting had grown beyond what my original business had ever achieved. Word had spread through the marine industry about how I'd exposed and defeated a sophisticated fraud operation, and that reputation for vigilance and honesty was attracting clients from across the Pacific Northwest. Insurance companies wanted surveyors who could spot deception and protect their interests. "Mr. Patterson," the yacht owner said as I finished my inspection, "I heard about what happened with your family situation. I have to say, the way you handled it has impressed a lot of people in the boating community. We know we can trust you to tell us the truth, even when it's difficult." The federal trials had concluded 2 weeks earlier. Cruz received 12 years in federal prison after pleading guilty to multiple counts of wire fraud, identity theft, and racketeering. The judge had been particularly harsh because of the emotional damage he'd inflicted on families, not just the financial theft. Sage had tried to play the victim right up until sentencing, claiming Cruz had manipulated her emotions and that she deserved sympathy as another victim of his schemes. The judge wasn't buying it. "Ms. Patterson, you betrayed the most fundamental trust that exists, the trust between parent and child. You systematically deceived your father for months, documented his destruction, and showed no remorse until you were caught." She received 4 years in federal prison, and I'd attended every day of her trial. Not because I wanted to see her punished, but because I needed to understand how my daughter had become someone capable of such calculated cruelty. The psychiatric evaluation presented during sentencing had been illuminating and disturbing. According to the court psychiatrist, Sage had developed antisocial personality traits that had been masked by her ability to manipulate people's emotions. She viewed her father's love and trust as weaknesses to be exploited rather than gifts to be treasured, the doctor testified. This wasn't a case of poor judgment or being led astray. This was predatory behavior enabled by family access. Robert from Portland had called me after the sentencing. "I never got closure with my son," he said. "He moved to another state after the business was stolen, and we haven't spoken in 2 years. But watching your case go through the system, seeing justice actually happen, it's helped me heal from what they did to our family." The civil restitution had exceeded even Henderson's expectations. Between the RICO treble damages and asset recovery, I'd received over $1.2 million in compensation, far more than the business and house had been worth originally. "You're probably the only victim of a major fraud who came out ahead financially," Henderson observed. "I'd used part of the money to establish a foundation that helped other victims of family financial fraud. The Patterson Family Trust Protection Fund provided legal assistance to people whose relatives had stolen their assets through power of attorney abuse and document fraud. We'd already helped 6 families recover stolen property and prosecute the criminals who'd betrayed them. The Mexico property that Sage and Cruz had purchased with stolen money had been sold, with the proceeds distributed among all their victims. The custom boat building shop in Portland was being returned to Robert, fully restored and modernized with insurance money. Maria in Sacramento was getting her marine repair facility back, plus enough capital to upgrade her equipment and hire new employees. Williams, the investigator who'd helped build the case, had started a consulting business helping older business owners protect themselves from family fraud. "Your case opened my eyes to how common this type of crime is becoming," he told me. Adult children targeting their parents' businesses and assets through legal manipulation. It's an epidemic that nobody talks about. My relationship with the broader marine industry had been transformed by the experience. Instead of being seen as a victim, I was viewed as someone who demonstrated exceptional resilience and integrity under pressure. Speaking engagements at industry conferences, consultation requests from insurance companies, even offers to write articles about fraud prevention, opportunities I'd never had before. The most satisfying aspect was how completely I'd rebuilt trust with my longtime clients. "You know, Dalton," said the regional manager from my largest insurance client, "we always trusted your technical expertise, but now we know we can trust your character under extreme pressure. That's rare in any industry." My personal life had also improved in unexpected ways. The isolation I'd felt during the months of manipulation and theft had been replaced by stronger relationships with genuine friends and professional colleagues. People who'd known me for decades but hadn't been close had reached out during the crisis, and many of those connections had grown into meaningful friendships. The coffee shop on 6th Avenue where I'd confronted Sage had become a regular stop. The staff remembered the day federal agents had arrested someone at my table, and they'd followed the news coverage of the trial. "Mr. Patterson," the barista said one morning, "you're like a local hero around here. People talk about how you stood up to criminals, even when they were your own family." Today, as I sit in my expanded office overlooking Commencement Bay in Tacoma, I can see 3 yachts waiting for surveys this week alone. Patterson Marine Consulting has become the most respected marine surveying operation in the Pacific Northwest, and it all started with the day I learned that trust without verification is just naivete in disguise. The business now employs 4 other certified marine surveyors, and we've developed proprietary inspection protocols that insurance companies specifically request. Our reputation for uncovering fraud, both in vessel conditions and documentation, has made us the go-to firm for high-value yacht transactions. What Sage and Cruz intended to destroy had become stronger and more successful than ever. I received a letter from Sage last month, her first communication since the sentencing. She'd finally acknowledged the magnitude of what she'd done and expressed what seemed like genuine remorse. "Dad, I destroyed the most precious thing in my life, your trust and love, for money that never made me happy," she wrote. "I know I can never undo the damage, but I want you to know that prison has shown me who I really was and who I want to become." Whether her transformation is genuine remains to be seen. She'll be eligible for parole in 2.5 years, and part of me hopes she's truly changed. But I've learned that love doesn't require naivete, and forgiveness doesn't mean returning to blind trust. If she proves through actions, not just words, that she's become someone different, we might find a way forward as father and daughter. The other victims of Cruz's schemes have stayed in touch, forming an unlikely support network of people who understand the unique pain of family betrayal. Robert reopened his custom boat building business in Portland, and it's thriving. Maria's marine repair facility in Sacramento is expanding into yacht maintenance. We've all discovered that surviving sophisticated betrayal can make you stronger, more perceptive, and ultimately more successful. The foundation has grown beyond what I'd imagined. We've helped over 30 families recover assets stolen through power of attorney fraud, and our legal assistance program has led to criminal prosecutions in 12 states. The psychological counseling component helps people process the emotional trauma of family betrayal, which often takes longer to heal than the financial damage. Henderson has become not just my attorney, but a close friend. "You know what impresses me most about how you handled this," he said during our monthly dinner last week. "You never became bitter. You got angry, you fought back, you sought justice, but you didn't let their betrayal poison your ability to trust good people." He was right. The experience had taught me to trust more intelligently rather than not trusting at all. My new employees, my genuine friends, my professional colleagues, I'd learned to verify their character through actions while still maintaining the openness that makes relationships meaningful. The marine industry recognition had exceeded anything I'd achieved in my previous 37 years of business. Last month, I was inducted into the International Association of Marine Surveyors Hall of Fame, specifically for demonstrating exceptional professional integrity under extreme personal adversity. The kid who'd tried to steal my reputation had inadvertently made it legendary. Williams calls occasionally with updates on similar cases he's investigating. "Your case broke open a whole criminal network," he reported last week. "We've identified at least 8 other con artists using variations of Cruz's family manipulation methods. The training materials developed from your case are being used by FBI field offices nationwide. The house where I'd raised Sage has been fully restored and updated. I considered selling it initially, too many painful memories, but decided instead to reclaim it completely. The kitchen where she'd manipulated me into signing fraudulent documents now hosts dinner parties with genuine friends. The dining room where we'd celebrated holidays that turned out to be lies now sees honest conversations and real laughter. My coffee routine at the shop on 6th Avenue continues, but now it's a celebration rather than a deception. The staff treats me like family, and other regulars often stop by my table to chat about business, local news, or just life in general. The community support during the crisis had shown me connections I'd never noticed before. When people ask how I survived having my own daughter try to destroy me, I tell them the truth. I learned that blood relationship doesn't guarantee character, but character can create family relationships stronger than blood. The people who stood by me during the worst months of my life, Henderson, Williams, my loyal clients, even the coffee shop staff, they became my real family. Patterson Marine Consulting continues growing, and I'm training the next generation of marine surveyors with one additional skill their technical education never covered: how to recognize when someone is trying to manipulate you, even if that someone is family. Trust intelligently, verify everything, and never ignore your instincts when something feels wrong. Some lessons cost more than others, but the expensive ones tend to stick.